Good communication. That's right.
Good morning and welcome to Unity of Walnut Creek. Now is our official start time, so please rise in body or spirit. Join us in singing All That I Need. All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me. I've been set free, I'm released. Sweet rain that washes me clean. Sweet rain that washes me clean. The mind creates all things, into my life it brings. Sweet rain that washes me clean. Let's take it up. All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me.
Me now? All right. You guys are on this morning. Yes, the band is on, and we appreciate you guys so much. You already heard Lisa and Annie getting us started, and Mitch Monroe is our special musician today. And they're all accompanied by Dave, Brian, and Scott. Thank you all. Welcome to Unity of Walnut Creek. It's such a pleasure to have you guys all here today. I feel like you're in my living room. Do you guys ever feel like that? That we're just all family here and we get together once a week or more and we just have fun together. So my name is Linda Stevens and welcome to my home. This is my home, and I hope it's your home too. So thank you for being here today. We are so blessed to have our community. So I encourage you to turn your cell phones off so that we can enjoy this sacred time together. And take a minute and turn back to the camera and tell our friends at home, good morning. Good morning. We know you're here in the spirit with us, even though you're not here in physical. Thank you for turning on your computer and joining us for Sunday morning. We appreciate your presence. Now, let's come inside, go to that place inside where you and Spirit talk to each other. Unity is a positive path for spiritual living. We have a unity, we have a mission at Unity of Walnut Creek. And that mission is, in a loving community, we empower spiritual growth by modeling and teaching universal spiritual principles. We have a statement of faith that we say together each week. So I encourage you to go into that special place inside, take a breath, and affirm with me. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. Now is when we'd like to invite anybody who's here for the first time to raise your hand, and we'd like to tell you good morning, and our neighbors are going to walk forward with the packets of information, our ushers, and they're going to look around and look for your hand up and hand out anybody that's got their hand up a packet of information that lets you know about us. And if you're willing, there's a card inside, and we'd love for you to fill that out. Let us know that you're here. And also, please go to our bookstore for a welcome gift. You can also pick that packet up in the bookstore if you didn't pick one up here in the service this morning. And please stay after service. Join us out on the patio if you're willing, and we'd love to tell you good morning. For everyone else, there's a connection card in the seat pocket in front of you. Please take it and fill it out. Let us know you're here today. If you have any questions, any concerns, any feedback that you'd like to give us, please use the card for that purpose. Now, please stand up and greet the people around you.
the ones.
We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the love that we seek. We are the seeds we are sowing. We are the harvest we reap.
Oh, I am.
I am that I am. Oh, I am
That
that
we are the
I am.
ones.
We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the love that we seek. We are the seeds we are sowing. We are the harvest we reap.
One more time.
We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the love that we seek. We are the seeds we are sowing. We are the harvest we reap.
We are the harvest.
We are the harvest we reap. We are the harvest we reap.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Zoe, and we have several activities happening here at Unity. Are you new to Unity or returning after a long absence, or you just want to welcome people who are new to Unity? If so, join us today at 1 o'clock in the community room for our New to Unity welcome. Enjoy light snacks as you make new friends and learn a bit about Unity. Childcare will be provided. Join Reverend Kristen to learn more about Unity beliefs, principles, and the history in the Unity Basics class that starts on March 28th. This class is open to everyone, and all 3 sessions are required to become a member of our spiritual center. The Children's Easter Choir will be rehearsing on Wednesdays, starting March 27th. If you have children that like to sing, please sign them up following the easy directions in your bulletin. Now imagine, if you will, having an hour with St. Francis of Assisi to learn how you can use the power of love to become an instrument of peace in this troubled time. Join us on Saturday, March 30th for a one-man musical with James Twyman, followed by a discussion of St. Francis and how his message applies to us now. Pick up a flyer on the patio for more information on this exciting event. And see your bulletin or our website for more information on these and other activities. And now I'd like to invite Reverend Kristen.
And this just in, on that last announcement, well, just in about a week ago, James Twyman emailed us and said that show is going to Broadway. So, pretty exciting, huh? Yeah. And I want to tell you about a luminary who's going to be here next Sunday. You won't want to miss Matthew Fox. Anybody know Matthew Fox? Oh, yeah, lots of you. Okay. He's written 30-some books. He's an Episcopal priest, at one point defrocked because he's such a maverick. And really pushes the agenda on all fronts. He very fits actually quite well into Unity, and his theology does too. So I think you're really going to enjoy Matthew. It's a wonderful opportunity to be with somebody, this elder, who brings so much love for the idea of eldership, intergenerational work, youth work, and our planet. He wrote a book after Occupy. What was it called? Occupy Wall Street, thank you. He and Adam Bucko, also a really amazing young spiritual being, sort of monk in everyday life is the way he sort of phrases himself. He does a lot of work with homeless in New York City. He and Matthew co-authored Occupy Spirituality and did some work around that as cross-generational work. So anyway, he has way too much to offer for me to encapsulate it right now. I just want to say he's coming. It's really exciting. You won't want to miss him. And please do join us for that. I also want to now welcome forward Terry Curtin, who's one of our prayer chaplains and always does such a beautiful job in sharing our prayer, our community prayer reading, because she expresses it so beautifully with her hands as well. So you want to keep your eyes open for this part of the meditation to take in this reading, followed by some music and guided meditation.
Good morning. Okay. Today's daily word is world blessing. In my mind, I picture the many cultures and colorful costumes of the world. I see beautiful landscapes from mountains to trees. I see the diversity of spirits in expression. I also picture what is shared by all people and nations. I see love, linking families together. I see smiling faces of children. I see people helping each other and communities working together for the common good. I see that we are all part of the human family, all children of God. Finally, I see the world as God sees it. I see all people everywhere unified in thoughts, purpose, understanding, and action for good of all humankind. I see people and nations trusting each other and living together in peace and harmony. You you are all one in Christ. Galatians 3:28. And so it is.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
allow that beautiful music begin to settle into the cells of our beings. All of us one with this mother-father source. The energy that binds us together, the energy that liberates us. And so as we breathe, we let that first breath refreshing and renewing breath of spirit overtake our whole being. Until we can feel how it is not I that breathes, but that I am breathed. And that great source of love that unifies us all, unifies all aspects of ourselves. So allowing every renewing breath to come through us. To bring forth a new consciousness and clarity. A new beginning. Every breath we are reborn, dying to the old ways of being that no longer serve us. Moving into the fresh springtime. Divine light within us and all around us. It guides our way to a new earth, a new life, a new self. So as we enter this silent time, we return and give over. Turn to the very source that breathes us. Give over control to allow ourselves to be reimagined, reshaped, rebreathed, and rebirthed in the silence. Every breath is freedom, is transformation. With every breath, there's an opportunity to forgive and be forgiven, to share compassion, to love. And so we thank you, God, for all that we are and all that we have to give and to receive on this beautiful planet. And so it is.
The light of God shines from my heart. The light of God shines from my hands. 'Cause I am a child of God. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
It's an open letter from you and me together. Tomorrow's in our hands now. Find the words that matter, say them out loud, and make it matter somehow. Looking down from up on the moon, there's a tiny blue on the pool. Who'd have thought that the ground we stand on could be so fragile? This is a love song to the earth. You're no ordinary world, a diamond in the universe, heaven's poetry to us. Keep it safe, keep it safe, keep it safe, keep it safe. It's our world. It's not about possessions, money or religion, how many years we might live. The only real questions that matter, still a matter of perspective. Looking down from up on the world, there's a tiny blue marble. Who'd have thought that the ground we stand on could be so fragile? This is a love song to the earth. You're no ordinary world, a diamond in the universe, heaven's poetry to us. Keep it safe, keep it safe, keep it safe, keep it safe. This is a love song to the earth. You're no ordinary world, a diamond in the universe, heaven's poetry to us. Keep it safe, keep it safe, keep it safe, keep it safe. This is a love song to the earth. You're no ordinary world, diamond in the universe. Heaven's poetry to us. Keep it safe. Keep it safe. Keep it safe. Keep it safe. It's our world. It's our world. It's our world. It's our world.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Mitch, and all of you. That was really beautiful. Feel like you need one of those breaths like me every so often. Excuse me while I raise up my arm. So we've been in this series. This is the 4th week in our shadow series, our illumined shadow series. That part's important. And, you know, whenever we look at shadows, it's not always fun, but it's really important. And it's a really important part of our spiritual journey and our understanding of who we are, both personally and how we are connected to the collective. And so this week we're looking at 3 types of consciousness. It's sort of an overview of the whole wave, if you will. And these types of consciousness were identified in Sharif Abdullah's book, Creating a World That Works for All. So this is the last in this series. And these types of consciousness, I'll just give you kind of an overview of them so you kind of have a sense of what the 3 are. The first is keeper consciousness, and they have historical grounding place. So the keeper consciousness is more of an indigenous people's kind of way of seeing the world and experiencing the world. A keeper consciousness is about harmony. It's about reverence for life. And it has a focus on the local ecology, kind of the area in which the people live. And so there's a harmony with all the beings in that local ecology. And then along comes, as you know, in our whole, if you look at our whole history, the breaker consciousness, the consciousness that really quickly changed keeper consciousness in many ways and brought forth all kinds of innovation, but also at great cost. So there is a sense of domination, there is a sense of competition, there is also a sense of ingenuity. So there's like take the good and the difficult that come with that and the challenging that come with that, right? If there was a word that sort of encapsulate the keeper consciousness, it would be reverence. If there was a word that encapsulated the breaker consciousness, it would be self. It's about creating a world that works for me, is the breaker consciousness as a part of it. And the last form of consciousness is the one in which we find ourselves sort of at a precipice. We're still in breaker consciousness, but what wants to be birthed is mender consciousness. And what we see little windows of are mender consciousness on the planet. Mender consciousness will transform breaker consciousness and will take kind of the best of both. So it will take the values from keeper consciousness and bring them forward, but in a different world, in a transformed world, in a world in which we operate with technology and all kinds of tools. And so mender consciousness is where we are on the edge of and what we're headed toward. And if there was one word that could encapsulate that, it would be compassion. So I was thinking this morning about, I'd already written my talk, and as Spirit would have it, sometimes I wake up with something different or new, sometimes completely different, but thank goodness that wasn't one of those mornings. And this morning it was really just about an example that really I feel encapsulates the process of these historical waves and where we are now. There's a place called Casa de Maria, the House of Mary. It's a retreat house in Santa Barbara. Anybody ever heard of it or been to it? It's actually technically in Montecito, right next to Santa Barbara. Seattle's been there. A couple people have been there. They have wonderful, all kinds of, now it's an interfaith retreat center. Well, actually now it's being mended, and I'll tell you the story. So in the beginning, it was Chumash territory. It was the tribe of the Chumash lived there, the nation of Chumash, and they lived in an oak woodland, and they harvested the acorns there, and the Chumash lived both inland and along the coast in that area. And then along came some of the breaker consciousness, and the padres from the mission came, and they began to build things on that land. And over time, then a rancher bought the land, and more buildings went up on the land. And for a long time, that were the owners. And at some point, a Catholic nun bought the land, and it became a Catholic retreat center with mostly nuns running it. And then it morphed into this interfaith retreat center where people from all over the world come. And it's beautiful. It's a very harmonious kind of sense. They have organic gardens, and they have a labyrinth and lots of outdoor space that's really gorgeous. And then the mudslides came last year, January 2018, and it's been out of service since. But it's in a mender mode. There's a lot of healing going on in the land and restoration going on in the land. When I first came to Santa Barbara, when Brenly and I were trying to, decide where we were coming in California, she says we threw a dart. I said, oh, no, I think we kind of guided that dart. And we ended up in Santa Barbara. And this was one of the places we visited before we even moved. And this sculpture is something that moved me more than anything that was on that land. And I want to just share that with you in a slide. That Larry's getting. And while he's getting that, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's called Transformation Through Forgiveness. And it's this really powerful piece that is half Native American man and half eagle. And the eagle is the symbol of our nation, and it is also, it has that sense of big picture, right? The eagle flies very high, you can see the big picture. And so this is sort of part of that keeper to mender consciousness that we're headed toward. This piece is, well, you can see how beautiful it is, and if you stand below it, it's about as high as these lights, so it's pretty profound piece to stand below. I actually happened to get a hold of the sculptor between services because I wanted to know if it survived the mudslide, and it did not. So that's a little heartbreaking. And it's kind of part of where we're at. This is the shadow. This is the piece that we have to dip into every so often and just feel a little bit of the heartbreak. Because when it breaks that old consciousness, and it opens us. It breaks through. It breaks down the old ways of being. It offers us a way to break through, and it offers us a way to break open. So when our hearts break, as much as we don't want that to happen, it breaks them open for greater compassion, for greater healing, for greater possibility, for greater everything that we dream of, the harmony, the peace, the joy that we want all of us to experience, what we long for, the spiritual hunger. The breaker consciousness has underneath it a spiritual starvation. It can't sustain us anymore, and we're at that point, So here's the good news about that sculpture. I don't want to wait. I was going to tell you at the end of this talk, but I don't even want to make you wait that long. So she made replicas of that, a little bit smaller, bronzed replicas. One stood at the beginning of the Trail of Tears in Oregon at a university and made its way to the end of the Trail of Tears, and she was just telling me, she was just bubbling over on the phone about this just now, 10 minutes ago. Well, no. 45 minutes ago. Anyway, it doesn't matter. A little bit ago. But she said that when they went to the end of the Trail of Tears and they established it at Northeastern State University in Oklahoma, that is where there's the largest enrollment of Native American college students in the nation. And they had a forgiveness ceremony, forgiving our forefathers for whatever all that has happened, in our push to innovate the Trail of Tears that has been left behind. So the good news is it still stands, and it stands in a very significant place. And so do we. So do we. You know, as much as you might have the times of, like in our first of this series, of feelings of anxiety about our world, we're still standing. And we're standing in a place where there's great meaning and great possibility and great opportunity. Remember, the Chinese meaning for the word crisis is opportunity. So when you bump up against the feeling that we're in crisis, know, oh, that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for me and everyone around me to break through into a whole new way of seeing and being and knowing and feeling and relating and creating together. So it is an exciting time to be alive. As hard as it sometimes is, it's a really exciting time to be alive. It's a time of passion. It's a time of igniting that passion in us and building a whole new world. I mean, really, we are all here by divine appointment at this time and this place. And there are days when I know you'd rather put a blanket over your head and unplug from everything that could tell you how ain't it awful it is, right? But there's also the need and the desire and the will of us to take that blanket off and to stand up and to move out, even when our hearts might feel broken, into a world, into a whole new world that we're co-creating together. So it's an exciting time to be moving into Mender consciousness. We are both hospicing breaker consciousness and midwifing Mender consciousness. We're between stories. The cultural historian Thomas Berry, who's just fabulous, if you ever want to look up his stuff if you don't know him, said, we are in trouble now because we're between stories. That's all. The old story is no longer functioning properly, and we have not yet learned the new story. But we are learning together, right? One step at a time, we are learning together. And that's the good news. Sharif Abdullah calls the whole scene of the breaker consciousness and what we've created in terms of getting to this brink of unsustainability, the mess. And I say, bless the mess. You know, bless it. We'll just bless the mess. We acknowledge it. It's out of the shadows. It's in the light. We can't ignore it anymore. Bless the mess. And then take what we can and move forward. Reach back into the values of keeper consciousness, knowing that we can't live in that local ecology so much anymore because we already are in the global web. And that's the world we've created. So good. So how beautiful that is. The World Wide Web has connected us through keeper consciousness. And so we can take that out into the web of life and be in the web of life. And along the way, we have to use each of the illumined shadows that we've done along the way. So the second week was lack to abundance. So recognizing that we are, there is enough. We are enough. And we're in the era of where abundance is enough-ness. It's sustainable. So it's a different lens than maybe you learned about 10, 20 years ago in your prosperity classes of more, more, more. We're not in the more, more, more phase anymore. We're in the how can I take what is here and make use of it in positive ways. I mean, it starts with really simple things. Like the other day, we inherited plastic chairs from Sheila at the house, and maybe she inherited from the person before, I'm not sure. But there's a couple of them that are kind of disintegrating, you know? So they were propped up at the fence to go out to the landfill, essentially, right? Ultimately. And I was looking at them and I thought, you know, maybe we could repaint those and get enough of a sheen on them that they would be protected. And we wouldn't have to put them in the landfill that way, and we wouldn't have to go buy more stuff like that. Well, we wouldn't have to anyway, right? But if I wanted 4 chairs, then I might do that. So it's those little things, you know, if we just refashion what we have and get off the train of more is better or there's not enough and realize we are enough and we have enough and we can just reuse what we have. That's one small way in which we make a leap toward Mender consciousness and toward embodying this kind of consciousness. It's easier for us, as Sharif says, to live the breaker story even when we see that it's dysfunctional than to change it. But we didn't come here for the easy road. I mean, it is easy. When we sync up with Spirit, there can be times where there is an easy flow, for sure. But we also have big challenges in front of us. And that's just the way it is in a positive way. That's just, it's the moment of recognition and allowing and accepting and then moving forward into what it is that we vision, what it is that we want, what it is that we know in our heart of hearts, in the deepest wisdom of our beings, what is coming forth, what we are birthing and midwifing all at once. So there's a story that really kind of encapsulates the breaker story well. In 1776, Captain Cook arrived, he was a British explorer, arrived on an island in the Indian Ocean. And he left behind a couple of rabbits, thinking there might be other sailors who came along and would like some food. And so the rabbits had this really, people already know where it's going. It's getting close to Easter time, so we know. We got spring fever, we understand rabbits. So there was this lush grass all across the island, right? So the bunnies had plenty to eat, and of course they began to eat, and they began to have lots of sex, and they began to eat, and they had plenty of water. I mean, it was bunny haven, you know? It's like, this is what we do. And so halfway through the grass on the island, they're looking around, all these happy bunnies going, wow, look how much grass we have left. Chomp, 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 you know, let's multiply some more. You get the idea of where we're headed, right? Pretty soon, no grass, no more bunnies. So I know, sorry. Again, shadow, right? It's like we're just shining little lights every so often, and it does make us go, oh, right? And we're not there yet. There's always hope. And so we can see these stories as a wake-up call to move us, to spark us, to help us ignite that passion in one another, to move together in the direction that we want to move. His name is Lester. Lester Milbrath wrote Envisioning a Sustainable Society. And in it he said, life on planet Earth is like a one-year movie. If you can imagine it as the metaphor of it's a movie that takes place over a one-year time period. And so from the beginning of life on the planet up until the last 11 minutes, humans come on the scene. And then it goes to the last 2 seconds of the movie, and that's when the breaker consciousness dawns on Earth. So in 2 seconds, we have brought ourselves to that place of going, this lifestyle is not sustainable anymore. This consciousness is not sustainable anymore. And so what can we bring forth? And how will we do it? That's really the question with which we stand. You know, one of the things that we know are some things that we learn along the way, that the old ideologies, the old ideas and ways of being, you know, we keep those, we don't change, yet life changes so fast. So we're kind of resting on these old ideas of what the American dream is, and that wealth can save us, and that more stuff is a good thing, and you know, these old ideas, and yet the world has changed. 2 seconds, look how much it changed. You know, it's changing so quickly, and so it's a catch-up with that. It's a catch-up to understand that. And that Fox, the spiritual teacher, said, I would much rather counsel somebody who was wealthy than somebody who was poor, because the wealthy people know that money won't solve their problems. And so then he could go to the next level with them. Otherwise, people without means will keep trying to get from coach to first class, you know? And so that will be because that is breaker consciousness and what we have perpetuated, right? But it's not, of course, about wealth out there. It's about wealth in here. And that's what Mender consciousness brings. That's what the opportunity is for us to birth into the world, is wealth and abundance of love, is wealth and abundance of compassion. Sure, it can be money too, because it's a great tool, but that's just a part of the whole, of the essence of what we bring forth and what we share with one another. Do you know the story of Jacob? The story of Jacob from the Hebrew Scriptures. So Jacob has a long story, and I'll just tell you a couple of the highlights. At the beginning of his story, he has a brother Esau who's a very hairy man. And he's a hunter, he's kind of like the man's man guy. He's a tough guy. And Jacob is more clever, more intellectual, it seems. And so he and his mother drum up this plan for Jacob to steal Esau's blessing, because the father is going to give one blessing, and it should go to Esau according to birth order and so on. And so he and his mom make this stew, which Esau would have made after he hunted. He would have brought a stew into his father, but his father is going blind, so he can only know which son is there by their scent and their feel. So Jacob puts on animal skins so he feels furry. And he comes in and he brings the stew and he asks his father for the blessing. And his father says, I want to touch you. And he touches his arm and he can feel the hair, although he thinks he sounds a little bit different than Esau. He questions it for a minute, but then he accepts it and he gives Jacob the blessing. Well, Esau comes back in for the hunt to make the stew to bring in for his father for the blessing, and finds out his brother has stolen his blessing. Now, Jacob needs to get out of town fast. And so mom and dad come up with a plan. We're going to send you over to this land far away to live with Uncle Laban. And so Jacob, and you'll find a wife there and so on. And so he goes on, and he does, and he finds many wives, and he prospers greatly, and he has, all kinds of livestock of every kind. And after many years with Laban, and he and Laban kind of tricking one another, it's time for him to make his way home. And so with this herds and herds of animals and his enormous family, they begin to make their way home. But there's something in the pit of his stomach, because he's going to, at some point, have to deal with Esau. And so he comes to the river ford, to the Ford Jabbok, and he sends his family across, and he wants to spend the night there by himself. In the meantime, he has found out that Esau is coming his direction with 400 men. So now he's really scared. And so he has this whole night where he's turning. Anybody ever have this? Wrestling with a problem, wrestling with an angel, wrestling with a man, wrestling with God, because the scriptures name it all those different ways. In metaphysics, angel is divine idea. So you could say he's wrestling with trying to get at the divine idea. And as he wrestles with the angel, he demands that there be a blessing. He demands a blessing out of this difficult challenge, this seeming crisis. And in a way, we're kind of like Jacob. We're wrestling with the problem. We're looking at where we've come. We're working to try to bring forth that divine idea and that blessing to move forward with us. And he's so afraid of what's going to come next that, and he's so willful that his hip gets thrown out of the socket. Now, the hip is the personal will. So it's like all the ego resistance gets broken down. And this, too, is a place that we come to, right? Where we have to let go of some of the ways that we're attached to, or some of the things we're attached to let the personal will just sort of be thrown out so we can surrender to spirit, to that divine idea that wants to come forward. And with his strength, Jacob demands the blessing. And he comes forward now. It's time, and he's limping the next day. And probably very tired, to go see his brother, right? And he's got all the folks with him. He sends a couple of them ahead of him, and then some are to his side, and some are behind him. And he comes, and he, with courage and fear mixed together, meets with his brother Esau. And does anybody remember what happens? Esau embraces him. And he says, my brother. How long we've been apart. That's really where we are and where we're headed as menders. Because the mender says, I'm not in the blame game anymore. I'm not worried about who did what to whom and how we got here, because there's not time for that, and it's not productive. I'm here to forgive. I'm here to bring compassion. I'm here to unite. Not just to unite in acute crisis, an acute opportunity like an earthquake or a fire, when we all are one and we work together with ease and we're all about helping our neighbors, but to know that we're in that chronic place of opportunity and to show up that way every day, uniting with each other. That last shadow that we looked at last week was other to one. that the otherness breaks down and we come forth from that place of we are one, we are in this together, all of us. The ones that we want to spend the time wagging our fingers at and saying you're wrong or you got it wrong or you did it wrong before, it's wasted time and energy. And so to let all that divisiveness go and separation fall away and come to this place of unition and understanding and possibility and opportunity, that's where we stand now at this precipice, this place of birthing forward, this mender consciousness. We have to have a little window, a little idea of who we are as menders to bring forth the menders, but we don't have to be totally there. It can be kind of a, messy thing. We're partway there. We're partway in breaker consciousness, and we're partway in mender consciousness, and we appreciate the values from keeper consciousness, and we know that we're moving forward into this new era, and we know where we're headed. Not exactly. We don't exactly have the how, which is the way that we co-create with Spirit anyway, right? We can't see the whole picture, but we can cast a vision. We can get a clue, an idea, a feeling of where we're headed. And that, I don't know about you, but that gets me excited about where we could be, about where we are headed, about the glimpses that we see now in our world of these moments that unite us as brothers and sisters, one and all, with all life. So this old to the new, there's another Hebrew story where the Israelites are wandering around in the desert and Moses is leading them. And it's been 40 years in the desert, right, which means whatever it takes. And they're, it really does in Hebrew numerology. It means whatever it takes. So they're getting close to the border of Canaan, the land of milk and honey, the promised land, right? It's time for a new era. It's time to go into that place that we have only dreamed about, have been told about, or caught a little bit of a vision of. And so we're all there. And what happens in the story, in order to enter the promised land, the old generation has to die off, including Moses. I mean, Moses is 120. His time has come. And so what that means metaphysically is the old way of being, the old consciousness, the old ideas have to die away in order to enter the promised land. The breaker consciousness has to break down, break through, and we need to break open so that we can step into the mender consciousness fully, into the promised land, into the place that flows with milk and honey. And what does that mean, to flow with milk and honey? That there is enoughness, right? That there is celebration, that there is everything that we want, that sense of harmony and unition. So that's where we're headed. That's where we're on the brink of. That's where we stand beside. We might have to throw out our personal will to get there. We might have to break down some of the ego resistance. And there will be some of that because we kind of like our breaker lives, don't we? I mean, I like my stuff, and it doesn't mean we don't have to give up all of our stuff. But, it's just not that mentality. Not that mentality of creating a world that works for me. So here's an important piece, too, in the how-to we do this, how we move into mender consciousness. There's a story that illustrates this in creating a world that works for all, where there's an old town, which is where we are now, and the folks in the old town have to cut a path to the new town. And so some of the residents of that old town keep sharpening their swords. And so they like to microscopic sharpness. Every day there they are at their wheel, sharpening their swords, preparing to cut the path to the new town, the mender way of being, the promised land, if you will. And if you ask the folks there who keep sharpening their swords, hey, why don't you just try to use it? It looks pretty sharp. They'll say, oh, no, it's not sharp enough yet. And then there's another part of town where the residents are hacking through the brush, and their blades are dull and rusted and even broken. And so now they're just kind of casting aside their tools, and they're just using their bare, bloody hands to try to, take out the underbrush to cut the path. And you say to them, hey, why don't you take a moment and sharpen your sword? And they'll say, oh, no, there's no time for that. This is urgent. We got to get to the other side, And they might urgently break through to the other side and not even recognize where they are because it's all about action and all about doing. These are the activists of our time. And you might find yourself, I don't know, not going to speak for you, over on the sword sharpening side, one more book, one more class, one more workshop. I'm going to get this down. If I just meditate 2 more minutes a day, and boy, that heart is looking good, But of what use until it's put out into the world? And so there's some kind of blending between these two approaches that is the ideal, right? And to know for ourselves when I need a little time to sharpen my sword and when I need to get out and use it. It may not be perfect, but it's good enough. And it's time to just start cutting the path and to do the best that we can do by getting out there in the world and building the kinds of bridges we talked about and serving in the kinds of ways we've talked about, volunteering in new ways, just doing new things. I just was exposed at the Interfaith exposed to the fact that like 90 transgender people are coming over the border from Tijuana seeking asylum, and Will McGarvey, the CEO of Interfaith Council, said he heard some of their stories, and he started crying as he didn't tell us the stories, but just even saying that. And I just thought, I want to sponsor one of those people. And there's an opportunity for that in our county, that if you have an extra room or some way that you want to help sponsor, there's an opportunity for us soon to be able to reach out to some of these people. Maybe that doesn't speak to you, but maybe something else does. Maybe something that takes you out of your comfort zone and brings that sword that is sharp enough to offer something new to the world, some new way that you can build a bridge or offer something kind to someone else, to be a mender, to create this new consciousness in the world together. We're up for it, aren't we? We're here. We've arrived. We're on the precipice. It's all here for us. Everything is here for us. We may have to give up a few comforts, but it's such a minor thing compared to what lies in the promised land of mender consciousness. What lies for us, what is ahead of us in terms of how we can live from these amazing hearts and souls. It's there for us. It's here for us. It's waiting to be birthed. And it only needs us to say, yes, I'll step in. Yes, I'll change. Yes, I'll do what's needed in order to bring forth, to embody this idea of unity that we are named so aptly for. So let's know it together. Let's affirm this together. And let's move forward out of the shadows and completely into the light. Together, I leave behind the breaker mentality. I am a mender, creating a world that works for all. And so it is. Bless you.
Are we menders? Yes. Are we ready to step out and move the consciousness forward? Because if not us, then who? So thank you for sharing that with us today. And thank you for letting us know ways that we can be menders. Because sometimes we don't even know. So let's talk about it and let's do things. So thank you so much for being here. Our prayer chaplains are here today and available after service to provide personal prayer support. So if you're a chaplain today, would you please stand so our folks can see who you are? Wow, we have a handful, and we just might need all of them today. So, because this was very, very touching. So please seek out one of our Yes, after services. And now it's time for our prosperity celebration. So it's time to open our hearts and our consciousness to the practice of giving. I invite you to prepare your gifts as we align with the universal law of circulation, which is, as we give, so shall we receive. And we already know that there is no lack and there's no limitation, because abundance has already been our true nature and is. For your convenience, there's a variety of ways that you can give to our community financially. For credit card donations, you can use PushPay on your smartphone or use the clipboard in the seat pocket in front of you with one of the envelopes. And for those of you at home, we don't forget about you. You can click Donate on the Watch Live page, or you can always send something in. So please be a part of that part of our service. Now I invite you to take your tithes and your love offerings in your hands as we affirm together our blessing. Divine love, one with me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am joy-filled and grateful. So I want to remind you today at 1 o'clock, if you're new, if you feel like you're new, or you've been here for a while and you just want to create more community, join us at 1 o'clock in the YE room. Thank you.
Big house, big car, backseat full bar, houseboat won't float, bank won't tote the note. Too much stuff. Oh, too much stuff. It'll hang you up, fooling with too much stuff. Hanging out on the couch, putting on the pounds, gotta walk, run, jump, swim, gotta hold it down, eating too much stuff. Oh, they're eating too much stuff. It'll wear you down, fooling with too much stuff. $100 cab drive, fogged in, can't fly, houseboat won't float, bank won't tote the note. Too much stuff. Oh, too much stuff. It'll slow you down, fooling with too much stuff. Well, it's a way too much. You're never gonna get enough. You can pile it high, but you'll never be satisfied. $100 cab ride, fogged in, can't fly, Greyhound, damn drag on a ball of Cadillac. Too much stuff. Oh, too much stuff. It'll slow you down, fooling with too much stuff. Got hurt, can't work, got a lot of bills, but the policy won't pay unless I get killed. There's too much stuff. Just too much stuff. It'll slow you down, fooling with too much stuff. Well, it's a way too much. You're never gonna get enough. You can pile it high, but you'll never be satisfied. Hurt, can't work, got a lot of bills, but the policy won't work unless I get paid. It's too much stuff. It's too much stuff. No matter what you do, you'll never get too much stuff. God hurt, church, you're gonna get enough. You can pile it high, but you'll never be satisfied. Pile it high, but you'll never keep satisfied. Don't work, can't work, got a lot of bills, but the policy won't pay unless I get killed. It's too much stuff. Oh, it's too much stuff. No matter what you do, it's gonna be too much stuff. Well, it's way too much. You're never gonna get enough. You can pile it high, but you'll never be satisfied. got work to do, got a lot of bills, but the policy won't pay. It's too much stuff. It's too much stuff. It'll slow you down, fooling with too much stuff. It's too much stuff. Just too much stuff. Oh, I can't get enough. It's too much stuff. It'll slow you down, fooling with too much stuff.
Well, that was just pure fun, wasn't it? Let's bless these gifts, giving thanks for the abundant good and the abundant joy in this room right now. Let's bless it together. We give thanks for the ever-increasing, unceasing flow of absolute good in our lives now. So it is. Come on up, children.
Marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the light of God.
There you go.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, it's colorful out there today. Okay, so today we talked about our 5th principle of unity. Anyone want to share what that was?
Always do your best.
Yeah.
Someone want to share what they're the best at? What do you feel like you're the best at?
I'm the best at being a leader.
Yes. Yes.
I'm the best, at riding my bike.
Nice.
I'm the best at doing art. I'm the best at Legos.
Anybody else? We're all okay.
I'm the best at cuddling.
Yes, she's the best at cuddling.
I'm the best at drawing.
All right, we're all the best at something, aren't we?
Yeah.
And then even if we aren't the best, we try our best, right? Right. All right. Thank
Let's
you.
bless our children. Yeah. Children, youth, and teachers, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divine light within you. So we invite you now to take your neighbor's hand, if you wish, and to close out with our prayer of protection and our peace song. Together, the light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God ever present.
light and the love and the peace on earth right now. So let your light shine and have fun.